In this week's presentation, we're going to be looking at reading items at intermediate levels and higher, so around B1 and B2 level according to the CEFR, and look at the tasks in APTIS which are targeted at those levels and why they are designed as they are. So what we will be doing then in this presentation is having a quick review of the reading model that we looked at last week, but think about it a bit more in relation to higher levels. Then go on to think about some terminology that comes up frequently in specifications to target those higher order reading processes, and then have a look at some sample items from APTIS which are designed to target those higher level skills and think about how they are designed, how they are working, and why they are theoretically appropriate for the level that they are. So here's the Khalifa and Weir model that we looked at last week, and as we mentioned last week, at lower levels, we are targeting information, or we are targeting understanding at paragraph or sentence level. So at A2 and A1 level, we're pretty much at sentence level. So we don't go into paragraph levels. We don't go into paragraph level in elementary tasks in APTIS. In this week's tasks, however, we're going to be looking at higher level skills. So how we read at paragraph level, how we read at text level in order to get that understanding at discourse level rather than at sentence. So at these levels then, typically, in order to get reading beyond the sentence, we require texts and tasks which are targeting things such as paraphrasing. So paraphrasing, as you're aware, this is when the key is stated in the text, however the wording and the phrasing is different. So keep that definition in mind because we're going to need to contrast it with inferencing in a moment. Also meaning across sentences. So when we looked at the A1 item last week, for example, the key was within the sentence. It wasn't necessary to read outside of a sentence in order to answer it correctly. That is not acceptable once we get to intermediate and higher levels. The key can't be contained in one sentence. In order to get the right answer, we need to get the test taker to read multiple sentences and get a sense of their overall meaning if we want to test those reading skills at intermediate and higher levels. Okay, inferencing. So this is when an opinion or a position isn't stated anywhere, but we have to read between the lines, or we need to get an overall understanding of a paragraph or a text in order to get the writer's overall opinion. And this is different from paraphrasing, and it can be confused in item writing. So paraphrasing could theoretically still be at sentence level. So when we have it phrased in one way in a sentence in the text and phrased a different way in the key, we're using paraphrasing, but we're still reading at sentence level. Inferencing needs to go beyond that. In fact, the key can't even be paraphrased. It can't be stated in as many words. We've got to get that skill of getting that inter-sentence understanding if we're really targeting inferencing properly. And similarly, abstract meaning. So this is obviously when we're talking about non-figurative ideas like emotions, opinions, ideas. And when we're writing text to target inferencing especially, it's extremely difficult to get that inferencing if your text is concrete. So for example, if your text is an instruction manual or something like that, then by the nature of the genre, the information is going to be very concrete and very explicit. So it will be incredibly difficult to get those inferred ideas if we're using that kind of text. So we also need to choose our text quite carefully if we're writing an item which is supposed to target. This is an example of a B1 task now with paraphrasing and meaning across sentences. So we're not quite at the inferencing level yet, because that's a relatively advanced skill. We'd want to target it more in our B2 and C level items. But certainly at B1 we do want to be looking at paraphrasing and getting test takers to read across sentences, so having the key contained therefore in multiple sentences. So have a look at this task. I suggest that you pause the video for a moment just to read it, and then we'll talk about how it works. So there are 4 people who each give an online comment, the context being a new shopping centre that's opened in a local town, and these comments are in the local paper. So here you can see comments from person A and person B, and if you scroll down you'll also see comments from person C and D, and then over on the left you have the 7 questions, and the task is to select which person chooses, or which person is expressing which opinion. You'll notice there are 7 sentences and 4 people, so this means that for some of the sentences you'll need to choose people twice. Okay, so let's have a look at person A, what they are saying. So have a look at number 2. The land could be used for more important things. So this is person A, and it's a question of reading across sentences, because the second sentence there is a new shopping centre just aggravating the situation. In the previous sentence, it just says it's controversial. But notice that in the first sentence, it doesn't say why it's controversial. In the second sentence, it doesn't say why it aggravates the situation. To get this information, you need to read the entire text and get understanding across the whole of the discourse. So it goes on to say that they shut the park last year and built houses on it, and then children have nowhere to play. So this could be interpreted as something more important. Similarly, number 7 thinks there should be more places to exercise. This is also person A, and it's a question of paraphrasing. So right at the end, when they said we'd have a sports centre soon, 7 talks about places to exercise. Okay, this now is an example of a B2 item with inferencing. Again, I suggest that you pause the video and read it, and then we'll talk about how inferencing is working here. In this item, this is just one paragraph from the text, so it's a much longer text. This is just one paragraph that I've taken, and the task is to choose a heading for that paragraph. So we need to read the surrounding paragraphs as well. So you can't see it here because I didn't have room on the slide, but you can see it in the materials for this week where we have this example. So in paragraph 1, this is paragraph 2, but in paragraph 1, it talks about the beginning of paleontology, this new science of studying dinosaurs. So this means that over the next 2 decades, so that means we need to go back to that first paragraph to see what the previous 2 decades had been about. And that had been the birth of a new science, the option there. So this is not the option here, but it is early developments in fossil hunting. That would be the key. So it goes on to talk about the latter half of the century and how paleontology saw rapid development, especially in America. So it doesn't say anywhere that this was an early development, but we have to read the paragraph before that the science had just begun. We have to read at the end that there were later developments, more important developments, and through this we infer that these discoveries by Mary Anning were the early development evidence in fossil hunting. That brings us to the end of this week's presentation. Thank you as always for your attention, and if you do have any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section below. Thank you very much.